Welcome, it's Debrup on Air. I'm your host Debrup Laha, and this is The International Lens, where we dive into the real life stories of international students in the US. I have been in your shoes, earning both my bachelor's and master's degrees here, and now I'm working full time in the States. This podcast series is for you, whether you're already studying in the US or just planning to. Every week, I'll bring you conversations with students from all over the world, sharing their journeys, challenges, and triumphs. My mission? It's to give you the insights and inspirations you need as you carve your own path in the US. So, whether you're dreaming of studying here or already on your journey, this podcast is your ultimate guide. Tune in and let's make your American adventure one to remember. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Today we have with us a very good friend of mine and a current PhD student at University of Arizona, Mr. Aalekhya Saha. Aalekhya, welcome to the first episode of the podcast series.
Thank you so much, Debruk, for hosting me.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. I've spoken with you a lot of times and I thought you might be a great resource for our audience and we would like to explore your journey and how you came to the US. So let's get started. Tell us a little bit about your background and your educational qualifications.
All right. So I'm from Shamnagar, West Bengal, and I grew up in a suburban school which is affiliated to ICSE. My school was St. Augustine's Day School. After completing my 12th there, I moved on for my bachelor's in physics, honors from Ramakrishna Mission Residential College, Narendrapur. It's an autonomous college under University of Calcutta. I completed my bachelor's in 2021, following which I moved to IIT Guwahati for my master's. And after that, came here, to the University of Arizona for PhD.
So Aalekhya is an international student from India. He did his bachelor's, then went for his master's, and now pursuing his PhD in physics. Moving on, so when you did your undergrads and your master's in India, did you pursue any internships in your field or any research experiences as such?
Yes, I did a small reading project during my bachelor's, master's during the summer break. I did a summer internship at the Center for Nano and Soft Matter Sciences in Bangalore. Following which, I did my master's project at IIT Guwahati itself. And after that, I did a small internship at ISCS Kolkata. ISCS stands for Indian Association for Cultivation of Science.
Okay, so you do have a variety and diverse experience, and along with your academics, you had also pursued different industrial experiences as well, which has probably helped your career growth.
Actually, that's not industrial because all the three research experiences I've had, all three were academic in nature. Although I might add that my internship at Bangalore was like technically it was like in a research lab, but it was focused on a product more. It was more for commercial usage. We were trying to optimize the parameters and everything. So yeah, that was industrial in nature, but then again in an academic setting.
During these academic internships, did you have any collaboration with any companies for any projects as a part of the different products that you were working on? So, were there any collaborations or was it solely research based with the academic institution?
Whatever I did was mainly research based.
Okay.
However, the setting of the lab was adhered a lot to the industrial demands. I mean, people from the industries coming at regular intervals, and once or twice in some meetings or lunches, group lunches
Okay.
or something, people came and asked about what I was building and everything. So yeah, maybe not my product essentially. However, the entire whatever we were doing in that group, that was in accordance to meet the demands of the industry. So I was working on something called smart windows.
Okay.
So yeah,
Makes
yeah.
sense. Yeah, I asked you this question because I speak with a lot of international students, and a lot of students do tell me that universities sometimes don't tend to accept applicants for PhD programs if they don't have any industrial internship experiences. That is not very true from what I am hearing from you because your experience was fully in the academia, but you still managed to
Yeah.
get multiple admits and choose University of Arizona. When you were transitioning from India to the US, did you face any challenges at the time? And did you have any mentors or any seniors who were there to help you?
Seniors were there. They
Okay.
did help me. However, what the major problem I faced was a lack of people to look up to, because in physics especially, what I see that if people go mostly in the US, because people going to Europe or other places is probably more common, but if you consider the US, mostly Indians going abroad have done their BS, especially their undergrad. They have started off at the premier institutes of the country, IISc, IITs, or IISER. Now, especially for somebody with a bachelor's in comparatively local college,
Yep.
where focus was not so much into research, there were few role models to look up to. I got more help from non-physics seniors, people in engineering, people in chemistry, and so on. But then the problem is, if you are in the same field, you get a better understanding. So that was something I did not get, and mostly did things on my own. Unlike most other departments, I have seen that physics departments are probably not so supportive when
Yeah.
students want to go abroad. But then, and now in hindsight, I feel that my university shortlist was not the best, but still everything worked out. But yeah, it might not have. So yeah, this is a major problem we faced.
Makes sense. Yeah, students do face a lot of challenges initially, and self learning is definitely one of the big factors, like you mentioned, since you didn't have so many seniors. But at the same time, you have come to a great college. From based on what I've spoken to students of different departments across the years, they say that university name doesn't really matter to that extent at the end of the day. Like if your work is good and if you're having multiple papers, that really helps. So since it's your first year in the US, I can definitely recommend you to just keep hustling, and you're already a hardworking student, so you should be fine. Coming to your current program, which is your PhD in physics program in University of Arizona, can you walk us through what are the courses that you're taking and how was it aligned with what you learned during your bachelor's and master's?
All right. So the course requirement varies from one university to another. However, the crux is mostly the same. So there are six major courses we have to take, like courses based on quantum mechanics, classical mechanics, statistical mechanics, electromagnetism. So these are courses which I have taken. Apart from the six major course requirements, we have the provision to do minor courses. There's physics, there's optics, there's material science, there's chemistry. So freedom to choose minor courses from other departments as well. So right now I'm doing a minor course in physics, but in the next semester maybe I can take up a minor course in optics or so, because my research interests predominantly lie in optics. Usually students get done with the courses by the fifth semester, but then I hope to get done by fourth semester. Let's see. Yeah.
Okay. Since I did my master's only in the US after my bachelor's, so we had to take three courses per semester while we were doing our master's. Is it the same thing for a PhD student as well? Or can you take more courses if
Yeah,
required?
we can take more courses if required, but then what I've heard, like there are students who have done their undergrad here and they're doing their PhD here as well. So what they have said is that the courses at grad level are almost more than twice as difficult as undergrads, and that's acceptable. We have to balance a lot of stuff. For example, at least for the first year, we have to do the work of a TA, we have to do our coursework, and we have to do some kind of research. So it's probably better advice to pace it out. For example, in my first semester, I took two major courses. I felt that, okay, I can manage a little more. So this semester, I'm taking up two major courses and one minor course. I hope to do the same thing in the third semester. Although, probably from the third semester, I'll get an RA, which is a research assistantship. So maybe I can focus on something else.
So
Let's
when
see.
you are a teaching assistant for a course, those are mostly for undergraduate, freshman, and sophomore level
Yep.
courses initially. And
Yes.
just for our audience, how many students are there for the course that you were TA? How many
Yeah.
assignments you need to grade?
Last semester, I had one lab and one discussion.
Okay.
So lab classes are comparatively smaller. We had 20 odd students in a class. I was reading 150 sheets. However, the grading was easier. It was based on completion, so it took lesser time. So that was one thing. This time I'm having two labs. These courses usually when they have exams, midterms coming up, end terms coming up, once that's done, there's a lot of midterm or end term things to be graded. So it often takes one full day. You spend one full day in the office and it's done.
Makes sense. Yeah. When I was an undergraduate and graduate student, I was also a TA. And when I was an
Mhm.
undergraduate TA, there were courses where I had to grade 400 assignments. And sometimes it used to take more than a couple of days because there's so many things to do. But I do
Yeah, I
believe this
understand.
is a very good experience and also a source of income for international students in the US
Yep, yep.
because you do get a stipend. And at the same time, that takes
Mhm.
care of your living expenses to a good extent. When I've spoken to students, they've always told me that they want a TA or an RA position from an income point of view, because a lot of students do come with educational loans as well, especially for masters.
For PhDs, actually, almost all PhDs in the US are funded. So you
Okay.
don't have to really look for funding. And this is a distinct advantage of the US compared to Europe or so.
Oh,
Because in
no.
Europe, I've heard that people have given out PhD positions, but there's no funding. That's a very problematic situation to be in. However, in the US, most people at least get a teaching assistant job. For example, in engineering, probably there's more funding. So students usually transition to research assistantships in their second year or so, or maybe some in their first year as well.
Okay.
In physics, overall, there's less funding for theory, and 70% of students doing physics are in
Okay.
theory. So they have to be a teaching assistant for 5 or 6 years of their PhD. For those of us who are in experiment, professors usually have better funding. Some of my batchmates have got their RA positions in their second semester itself.
Okay.
On the other hand, I'll probably get it from the summer following the first year.
Okay. So that brings me to my next question. Do you have any short term goals in this summer? Are you doing any RA or do you have any internships?
No, because I haven't really thought of internships yet because the lab in which I'm working, it's mostly industry focused. Not
Okay.
that my professor is completely that, but like there have been 5 students who have graduated from my lab till now, all have gone into the industry. This is very uncommon if you consider physics labs. In physics, it's usually 50% academia, 50% industry.
Mm-hmm.
The lab in which I'm working is an exception in this case. So there's a kind of security inside that, okay, fine. Maybe if you keep working in this lab, you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to look for internships to get a job afterwards. However, I know internships earn you more money, but then that delays your PhD as well. I'm not sure, but at least in the first year, I'll just be working as an RA
Okay.
in my lab. Of course, I have some like academic goals in mind.
Mm.
So there are a lot of instruments to learn, lot of instruments, and I'm really trying hard to master it. And I've started collaborating with senior PhD students, and I'm involved in a project which is in a collaboration with the University of Colorado Boulder. I want to go on with these projects because these are very, very exciting. I want to learn more and more. So I want to get a hang of this lab so that I want to be independent as much as possible. I understand senior PhD students are always very helpful. However, I don't want to disturb them all the time. I want to
Okay.
start off my own.
Which makes sense. But yeah, it's good to know that you're also doing a cross university collaboration for your work with University of Colorado Boulder,
Yeah,
which is also great because prospective PhD students who will be coming in the future, they will also then know from before that, okay, there's an option to collaborate with other universities as well and not just restrict to your
that's always good.
university and laboratories. And yeah, I mean, about the internship experience, you said that you're currently not looking for it, but definitely, it's an income booster. I agree, but at the same time, it helps you get an exposure into the industry as to what's happening, what the
That's true.
challenges are. So, what I'm wondering is, when a student is, let's say, coming for a PhD at University of Arizona, can they rely on you, or can they reach out to you for help if they have any questions?
Definitely. Yes, yes, I'm always open to that. In fact, there are comparatively less Indians in physics.
Hmm.
Other departments are also welcome. But yeah, I'll obviously be more helpful to a physics student rather than a chemistry student. So yeah, please, anybody can
Yeah.
come and talk to me.
For everyone listening, if you are coming to University of Arizona, you know who to contact. Please feel free to get in touch with him. And even if he cannot help you directly, he will likely direct you to somebody else in the university if there is somebody from other department who might be of
Yes.
help to you as well. So that's a very good thing that you are willing to help the students as well. Aside from work, research, any passion projects do you have? Do you do any side hustles or hobbies?
Honestly, I thought of doing a lot of things. I wanted to, first of all, I was really interested in teaching. I'm not interested in grading, but I like teaching. I used to teach back in India. I want to start that off again. However, the F1 visa has its own limitations. So I'm postponing that for some time. So that's one thing in mind. The other thing I have in mind is that people here are very entrepreneurial in nature.
Mhm.
So for doing something, you need to get some skill. I don't really have something specific in mind. In the middle, I thought of doing some kind of consultation work that's got stalled as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I have to think more about it. Let's see how it goes.
Okay, yeah. F1 visa has its own regulations and limitations. So if you're confused
Yeah.
about something, always make sure to consult with an immigration attorney. And on the
Mhm.
same note, you spoke about skills. Let's say, hypothetically, a recruiter reaches out to you for an internship in a startup. So, what are the
Mhm.
skills do you think you can bring to the table for which you might be an asset to the firm?
Considering the lab, I have learned a fair bit of fabrication.
Okay.
So that's one thing I can bring to the table. Also, I haven't yet started off properly, but I have had some experience back in India, and I'll probably gain some more experience when it comes to like photoluminescence spectroscopy and
Okay.
the something in optics. The lab in which I'm working in, it has two main components. One in which we do fabrication, like all kinds of semiconductor chips, device making, and everything. That's one aspect. And the other aspect is optics.
Okay.
So it's a vast area of skills. Chip fabrication gives you exposure to the complete semiconductor industry because, like, you make devices, you do lithography and everything. While the optics is another domain. Another thing is that our lab works a lot on quantum computing, bringing up the
Okay.
next generation of quantum computers because that's like saturated right now. So there's a new brand or level of or generation of quantum computers. So maybe these skills will help me get somewhere, but I'll probably be more acquainted with everything after my second year rather than my
Okay.
first year. Yep.
Makes sense. Since I speak to a lot of PhD students as well, they often say that they are planning to attend multiple conferences. Are you planning to attend
Mhm.
any this academic year?
Maybe not this year, from the second year, usually when we have enough data, because I'm still in the process of collecting data for myself and getting to a conclusion. Maybe from the next year, that there's one meeting which really everyone attends, which is APS March meeting of abstracts.
Yes.
APS is American Physical Society. So that's a very famous conference which we can attend in the fall.
Okay.
So that's something I'm planning to attend next fall. However, I've seen from my lab people publishing in conference proceedings quite a lot, especially from the third year or so, when you have really good data to back yourselves. One good thing about our lab is it's quite flexible. So if students want to do something and it's feasible, the advisor is usually supportive about it.
And about these conferences, are these usually funded or do you need to self sponsor yourself to attend these conferences?
It really depends on the location, whether it's funded by the lab. Of course, if you are showing some data which is generated by the lab, it's funded. Now, it depends on the funding scenario of the professor as well, because for people usually working in experiment physics are funded,
Hmm.
but then I've heard it varies from lab to lab and institution to institution.
And on the same note,
Mhm.
since we are coming towards the end of this episode, just a couple of more questions.
Yeah.
So, initially, you had spoken about the funding for PhD students. Has there been any
Mhm.
situations, or do you know of any situations where students have come with funding, but due to, let's say, grades or whatever reason, the funding got cancelled and then the student had to pay out of pocket for the remainder of their PhD program?
I don't know. That's not common at all. I don't know of any scenario like that. However, there is a clause that in the major courses, if you can't get a stipulated grade, like you have to get a 3.1 out of 4, if you don't get that, maybe you will be kicked out in your third year. So that's the problem. That's something is there. Although there are provisions to give an interview somewhere, but if after all this you are not able to get on with it, you probably will be fired. But that's a very rare case. Usually students who have gotten, they don't face so many issues. Although I recently heard from a friend who is in UIC, University of Illinois Chicago, that from their lab a girl has been fired after 3 years of PhD because there was no progress in her work.
Makes sense.
That was the first time they had fired anybody.
So it's important for prospective PhD students to know that although it's not very common, but things can happen. So you need to always be focused and keep making progress. When we were in our master's degree program, I remember a lot of students in the first semester went in academic probation because of the GPA requirement, like you mentioned. And then they had to make sure they work extra hard to bring up the second semester and third semester GPA up so that their cumulative GPA goes up. Definitely, it's a very
Yeah.
important thing that you made, that GPA above a certain number is always very essential. Coming to my last question, you told about your short-term goals for your next 2 to 3 years. Where do you see yourself after you graduate from University of Arizona?
For now, I'm mostly interested in getting into some kind of industry. In my field, usually Apple and Nvidia, these are big names.
Yeah.
But then I'm looking more into work which suits what I'm doing. Quantum computers is something I'm really interested in, and I know that in my field, like that's new technology. Like in computer science, you have AI, right? And
Yeah.
then there are a lot of people who do work in energy and environment because those are the pressing needs of the next few decades. I think with my skills, I can make a lot of contributions to quantum computers. This is one thing I really want to do.
Mhm.
Yeah, if I get work into a startup which really does good work in this and there's scope for growth, I'll probably join that.
I really like the fact how you explained during the entire episode about your career progression, where you started mostly in academia, but getting some
Hmm.
exposure to the industry with industry professionals. And now your long term goal might be to get into the industry as well after your PhD.
Usually in physics are more curious in nature.
Yeah.
Like they want to unravel the workings of the world. I am a half engineer, if you might assume me to, because I want to further the technology. So yeah, working in the R&D departments of certain company, certain organization, that probably gives me the sweet spot between research and technological development. Let me see how it goes.
Okay. Quick thing to the recruiters, Alekho is a passionate and hardworking physics student, and his long term goal is to get into the industry where he can use his skills, his academic research experience. I certainly believe that wherever you join after your graduation, you will definitely be a great asset to that firm. And
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for hosting me. It was a great experience talking to you about everything.
The students will get great insights from this podcast. And I recommend all the students who are listening to this, please get in touch with Alekho. He's a current student, so he knows what are the different do's and don'ts as you plan to explore your academic journey into the US, and he will be a great resource for all of you. Thank you so much, Alekho, for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in. Got questions or suggestions? Drop me an email at debruponair@gmail.com. Catch you in the next episode.